is the coordinator both for the Flemish Supercomputing Center, as well as one of the managers for Central IT here at KU Leuven. She has a master's in science and computational physics, and she's been at KU Leuven for over 20 years, it looks like. That's right. She started in HPC user support, and now as a manager, she's responsible for IT services for research that include the e-learning environment, communication and collaboration tools, HPC itself, and then the research data management platforms, which is part of the reason that we first met her and why we're so excited that she's on board with all of what we're doing. And we're happy to have her here today. And so please come and say some smart words. Thank you.
Okay, so some time ago, I was asked to talk here about research data management at KU Leuven. But of course, I know very well that the main reason I'm here between all these people who know much, much more about data management than I do is just to welcome you in Leuven. So I will keep to that. So welcome in Leuven. I hope you had the opportunity to walk around in our nice city. And you will experience that in Leuven. Leuven is a really university city, that really the city life and in universities is really tangled. So our university is almost 600 years old, and you will see all around the city, and even here in Everley, you will see all kinds of buildings that belong to the university. Here we are in the middle of the campus of exact sciences and engineering. And this building, a Thermotechnisch Institute, a thermotechnical institute, is in fact also an old building you saw there, and it's in fact industrial and maybe universal heritage. This auditorium is called after the second law of thermodynamics, het auditorium van de tweede hoofdwet. So the castle, where we will have lunch, I suppose, is built in the 16th century, and it was built as a family house for a noble family, de Croix, and afterwards it was taken by the Dukes of Arenberg, and that's why we call it the Arenberg Castle. Now it's also a KU Leuven building, and the Faculty of Engineering and the Architecture are using the castle now. So KU Leuven itself is a university with almost 60,000 students organized in 13 faculties. We have more than 1,800 professors, and we are active in a very broad area of research domains. You will see it as we have almost everything. Probably you know, but KU Leuven is known as the most innovative university of Europe. And you can see that because we founded almost 150 spin-offs that are very active for the moment. KU Leuven is of course not alone. We are well connected in Flanders with our sister university or other universities in Flanders. But also we have a lot of research institutes, very famous in research institutes. IMEC, maybe you passed it, is one of it. We have a good relationship with our sponsors, FVO, EWI, Department EWI, and of course the European Commission. FVO is also helping us to organize this conference. And of course we are active in a lot of European groups of universities, the Coimbra Group, Una Europa, Universitas 21, and others. Okay, so I was asked to talk about research data management. Well, when I'm thinking about research data management, I don't think about hardware, and I don't think about software or something like that. I really think about all the challenges it brings. One thing is clear, we really accepted the challenges, and I think you all do. So the first challenge, and I think this is very important, a very important challenge, is to explain to everybody why we care about research data. And of course, we are working with research data for a long time. And people ask, why was the way we worked, was it not good enough? And why do we have to manage data now? We manage it all the time. And the answer is, of course, because now in these days, research data became one of our main assets. And we have to protect these assets. Researchers want to work in an effective way with their data, with high quality data. And managing data can help, in fact, striving for scientific integrity. I think that's very important. And of course, we want to ensure reproducibility. That's important for researchers, but the concern of the researchers is, of course, the concern of the institutes. Moreover, good data management can help us to protect the institutional data, protect the institutes against data loss, and help to protect our IP that is built upon the data. And that is nowadays very, very important. In KU Leuven, we try to translate all this in a data policy, document, and we also translate it in core principles. And these core principles are around storing and documenting data, around metadata, around deletion of data, around how long do we have to retain the data, and some contractual regulations. These principles for us are very important. These are written very practically, and it helps us even to make decisions about the architecture, about the infrastructure we have to implement. The second challenge is about complexity. We all know that the research ecosystem is complex, and I think research data is even more complex. Research data management is not an infrastructure. We all know that. It is not software. It is not a process, but in fact, it is a kind of a journey with all kinds of phases. It's all we do with and around research data before, during, and after the research projects. So it's very big and it's very huge. In KU Leuven and ICTS, we translated this in a lot of services. Services around the start of the data. We have services around data management plan, about all kinds of other services. We have all kinds of services in the active phase, where when users are really doing the scientific process. And of course, services for publishing data, and even services for long-term preservation. All these services sit on a variety of hardware solutions. Of course, iRODS plays an important role in this, and we are piloting now, but we have big plans with iRODS. We place iRODS in the entry point for describing the data. So we place iRODS really in the active phase. And of course, placing it there, it helps us to publish the right data to the right repository. And even it can help us to make decisions about staging of data. It helps us for having long-term preservation in an efficient way. The third challenge I see is, and I already mentioned before, is I already mentioned that data is complex, but the fact that the research environment is constantly changing makes it even more complex. Researchers do not live in one institute or in one domain anymore. They're constantly moving and working in more and more than one domain. When you translate this to Flanders, we have in Flanders the Flemish Research Data Network. And this research data network is really a connection of all, you see there, all the institutes who are working together, helps us to implement research data in this network of universities and institutes with the ambition, and this is very important, of working together. We want to work together where it's possible, where it will create added value. That's not in all the phases, we know that, but we pick these points out where we can work together, and even, or where we can find economy of scale. So sometimes things doing together is very important. So this can lead to common policies, to exchange of best practices and templates, or to share infrastructure. So in practical, FRDN or network is important to create a common view on the usage of the Flemish research database and the research portal, the FRIS portal as we call it, and to help it to connect to a wide range of solutions under the umbrella of EOSC. We all know that this is really a challenge to bring all these things that happens in the EOSC environment in very close to our researchers. So in order to help the researchers to find their way in this a little bit chaotic world, because we cannot make it easy, we created kind of a guidance where professors and researchers can find all the information to make decisions on how they work with their data. And we help them with a lot of tools via this portal. The fourth challenge, and I think I will not be the only one who is talking about this, is the verification of data. Data does not come fair into our institutes, or data is not fair from the beginning. We have to make it fair. And this takes a lot of steps before the data is indeed findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. We are convinced that we better make the data fair as soon as possible in the process, even right from the beginning. That's why we implemented iRODS in the active phase of data. We try to help researchers to describe their data as easy and as automatically as possible in the first steps of the data cycle. Working with fair data instead of undescribed data, I make it simple for the moment, is also in the active phase very important. You work much more efficient with described data than with data that is somewhere sitting in storage environments all the way. Of course, it will also help us to, at the end of the process, make the data open for the outside world. If you describe it very soon, very in the first phase of the project, it will become fair in the end of the process also. Of course, using iRODS in the active phase is not so simple, and it means a lot of things. We have to think about building iRODS on high available and secure infrastructure. We have to provide multiple clients and multiple interfaces, much more than in the end phase. We want to make it for the professors as easy as possible. So we work on workflow automation. And of course, metadata in an active phase means something else than metadata in the post-publication phase. So you really have to think about it very clearly to make it feasible for the researchers. Another challenge, and that's maybe my challenge, is the cost. We expect an enormous, and depending on who you're talking about, but sometimes it's very enormous increase in volume. Even though that probably the cost of storage will probably decrease a little bit, and with these times, in these times, we even don't know that, the funding of the storage will be a main concern for the next years. Moreover, we all know that the cost of the storing the data does not stop when your when your scientific project ends. So together with the funding agencies, we have to find a solution to fund the complete life cycle of the research data, even after the project has ended. Of course, this problem of cost will not be solved only by asking more and more money to our funders. This will not work. We have to do more. We also have to think of using the right solution for the data. So we need the solution that only have the features that the user and the researcher needs. Also, we have to tier the data. We think about tiering, or we try, or we dream about tiering automatically, so that we put the data on the cheapest solution as possible. So, but you probably know the quote, fast, cheap, good, pick two. This quote always works in every circumstance, especially this one. I think the sixth challenge is expertise. Research data management is not a question of IT personnel. or cannot be solved by domain specialists or by data stewards on their own. It's always an interdisciplinary team that is needed to solve the specific data problem of a specific researcher in a specific research project. And this is always something new. We always have to find new solutions. So in KU Leuven, we brought all the expertise together in a competence center. And this is kind of also a network, a competence center network. And they are really at the driver's seat of research data management at KU Leuven. The competence center is in lead of a lot of initiatives and is in fact the single point of contact for everybody who is involved in the research data management process. And of course, in all the things we do, in all the services we deliver, we must take into account that we work for researchers. And the researcher is typically a very, very busy person with a variety of tasks and a lot of responsibilities. Building and exploiting research data management in a researcher-first way is the next challenge. So the researchers must always be first. That's why we have surrounded the journey to fair data with a lot of services. And I think the services are even more important than the infrastructure we deliver. So we work in phases, for instance. We learn a lot out of our pilots, and then we go slowly further on. We don't prefer a big bang in research data management. We have to automate as much as possible. Of course, we cannot automate everything, but anyway, there must be found somewhere a happy flow through through all the phases, and we try to automate it. I think we have to think about actionable solutions, and there will be a talk on this later. We have to find a user-friendly interface so that every researcher, even the researcher who are not used to work with technology, can use our solutions. And of course, a lot of challenges will follow. In this ever-changing world, data management will always lead to new challenges, but of course also to new opportunities. And I think whatever comes on our path, we have to think as Molière did. The greater the obstacle, the more glory in overcoming it. So thank you, and I enjoyed the conference.